I'm not sure if you've got any reflections, Diley, on the personnel who've been named here, but that same question that I put to Jerome, based on voter feedback, do you think interest did peak when the actual body was passed as a piece of legislation?
I mean, I supported the legislation, but in the community of Fowler, it obviously wasn't front and centre of people's mind. Cost of living is currently very much front and centre of people's mind. However, the announcement of the appointment of very eminent judges onto this board. Obviously, we'll see how it's going to pan out. Once the system's been set up, the structure's set up, then the process. I think the interest will peak again once we know who will be caught, through this whole NAC legislation.
Let's go to things that really do hit the hip pocket of people, particularly in your electorate, Diley. Housing Future Fund is kind of stalled out here, well, at least in the Senate, not so much in the House. There'll be no deal this week. Are there real-world consequences if this is not quickly resolved?
Look, I don't think there'll be real-world consequences because currently we have housing shortages anyway. I don't think that this bill will deliver the 30,000 houses that is supposed to deliver immediately. So there are no immediate measures to address the housing shortages. In my electorate, I think there's about 43% people who rent in my electorate of Fowler. I don't know what's yours like, Jerome, but we are going to face the increasing rent at the moment and increasing grocery prices and all of that. So that's going to impact people immediately. So I don't know how we would address that issue.
And who do you look to, particularly in the area of rent assistance or rent freezes? I see the Queensland government did something yesterday, in fact, quite a few measures to address housing. Who do you look towards?
So the National Rental Assistance Scheme is going to come to an end. I did put it to the Minister that to extend that. I don't think that they're going to extend that, but I think for immediate measures to assist those on low incomes who are relying on, on social housing, to actually have that system in place if the 30,000 houses will not be immediately built in the next 12
Well, it's 5 years, which is actually a long process to get.
It's a long, and I don't believe it's going to be guaranteed to be built in the next 5 years either, with the shortages of land release and the planning and all of those approvals. As you know, it takes time to get anything built.
Just on rent freezes, though, that is one of the core demands of the Greens, apparently. Is that something a state government should be examining?
Look, I don't know how you can freeze rent because if you think about it, the cost of living, everything has gone up, and materials for housing and all of that and everything, and so therefore you're asking landlords to kind of the own properties to freeze the rent. It's just really, I think the core of the issue is the cost of living crisis that we're all facing, and there's so many issues that we need to address, and there's so many the supply chain, there's so many things that has to be retackled in order to address the cost of living crisis that we're all facing.
Encouraged at all by the inflation data that came out today, kind of suggesting the peak has passed, even though it's 6.8%. Ouch.
The peak, but we still have not felt the impact yet of the 10%, the 10 rate rises. So that's still going to flow on. Yeah. So while it's peaked, so yeah.
Did you witness it because you were closer to that set of doors?
Yeah.
Full contrition, by the way. We will show those who apologised, about 7 in total. We'll show that in a moment. But your take on the incident?
So I know that the door is actually quite narrow. So and it's very confusing when divisions takes place. And I don't know if people are in there. And when it happens, and it's a new MP, you don't know when it stops, and it's just very confusing.
1 minute bells, 4 minute bells,
and all that stuff. So we actually, and I had a meeting and I left. I just walked out already, and then I just turned around and I heard some kerfuffle to look to see what was going on. I actually did not see what happened, but obviously later on discovered that there was all this apology, and of course, we need to have safe workplace, for especially with staff in Parliament, and I think that's something that we need to really be considerate about.
Was there any margin for error here? Specifically, I ask, in your new MP's school, was it instructed to new MPs, including both of you, that when the Speaker says the doors are to be locked, there is no further egress or ingress through them?
I mean, I can't. I mean, look, that was about 12 months ago, Craig. And
Not
I think,
a detail you necessarily
and I
remember,
think, you know, being the first-time MP and very overwhelmed with the fact that you got elected, in my case as well, and still very much sometimes asking myself, oh my God, I'm here. And so I think I can't recall. You learn. This is something you learn along the process.
And they tell you to read the standing orders. But I mean, you look at those who gave the apology today. I think all but one is only one's a first-time MP. The rest know the rules. They should have known better, and they should have stayed in the room. Yeah.
Well, let's see if this kicks on or whether it was in fact a one-off. Jerome Laxale, Di Lee, great to have both of you back, and we'll talk again soon.